evening, and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay and Area Victim Services and the Coalition to End Human Trafficking is working towards making the community a safer place. The two groups hosted an engagement session this past week to help create awareness around human trafficking and inform residents of the possible dangers of it within the community. The free event began with a training session from members of the Thunder Bay Counseling Center to educate the attendees about what signs to look for and who to call if they find themselves in an unsafe situation. The day concluded with a panel discussion from members of the Coalition to End Human Trafficking and Thunder Bay Police.
80% of all human trafficking in Canada happens in Ontario, and out of that, Thunder Bay is identified as one of the top 6 hubs. So it's incredibly important. We have to start that conversation, and especially with professionals, we need to make sure that everybody knows the information and what to do.
We're close to a border, we have a port, we have a highway that you can't go east or west without coming through us. We're the furthest north international airport, which leads to over 30 communities north of us. So realistically, this is a location that is prime for this kind of behavior.
Residents are urged to contact Victim Services if they have questions or are looking for support. Red Lake OPP has arrested and charged a British Columbia man with impaired driving early this morning. At approximately 12:30 a.m., officers observed a motor vehicle had failed to stop in an intersection. Police initiated a stop and demanded for a breath sample. The driver failed and was placed under arrest for operation while impaired, then returned to the detachment for further tests. 25-year-old Brandon Miller from BC was charged and will return to court next month. OPP is reminding the public to drive responsibly and to not drink and drive. It's been a busy month for the 6 candidates seeking to represent the Kenora riding in Ottawa this fall, with an incumbent taking on 4 political newcomers and 1 seasoned campaigner. It has proven to be an interesting campaign so far. Adam Riley has this breakdown of all the candidates.
It's a full slate of candidates vying to represent Kenora for the next 4 years. Incumbent Liberal Bob Nault says since taking office in 2015, the region has improved greatly through multiple investments in infrastructure.
I think we've made some historic gains in what we've been trying to do in the north for many, many years now, and that's to get ourselves in a position where we can, in fact, grow this economy in a large way.
Looking to take the riding back from the Liberals is Conservative Eric Malillo. He wants to work with small businesses and industry to cut red tape and make the region more attractive to private sector investment.
Affordability is a huge issue. I'm hearing it at the doors, and I'm also feeling it myself as a resident in our riding here in Northern Ontario. So helping to address those issues, I think, will help make our region an area where people want to stay in and people want to move to again.
As Chief of Grassy Narrows, the NDP's Rudy Turtle has seen firsthand many of the riding's social woes and wants to tackle them if elected by investing in programs geared towards addictions.
It used to be that alcohol was a big addiction issue, but now we got drugs and different type of drugs where you take something just one time and you're hooked. So that's a very hard challenge.
The Green Party's Kiersey Ralco believes her party's platform is a way to not only rejuvenate the economy of the Kenora riding, but also tackle climate change, which would in turn solve some social issues.
We've seen a downturn in recent years in our mining and natural resource sectors, so putting people to work in the green economy, such as on the cross-country electrical grid, could really benefit our area.
People's Party candidate Michael DePasquale believes the current government has turned towards totalitarianism. He believes his party is a way to counter that and proposes a fresh start with Indigenous communities.
I would like to see the Native people be given a fair number of their lands back, or as much as possible, without really hurting other Canadians.
An independent candidate has also put their name forward. This is the 3rd time Kelvin Boucher Chicago has campaigned to become MP. His focus is to bring accountability to First Nations and save taxpayers through different strategies, such as buying back status cards.
You don't want to sell, you want to live on a reserve, then stay on a reserve with your status card. But if you're out here in society and you got no use for your status card out here, let Canada buy it back. And I think Canada should. They used to do it before. They had an option. The Conservatives took that away.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
And we'll have a more in-depth look at all 6 of the candidates next weekend on Northwest Newsweek. A bold new initiative has been launched by Grand Council Treaty 3 to encourage its members to vote. It's called Treaty 3 Votes, and it's similar to 2015's Rock the Vote, which promoted voting in Indigenous communities across the country. Oji-Cheetah Francis Kavanagh says for many of his people, there is a deep distrust of the political system, which in turn create barriers that prevent people from voting.
A lot of our people will not participate because they don't have the proper identification. You know, there's no driver's licenses. There's an inability for them people to go to polling stations and this and that. And so that was the biggest reason why we're doing this.
Kavanagh feels that with more Indigenous voters and more Indigenous candidates being elected, the voices of his people will be heard. While many families prepare a hot Thanksgiving dinner over the weekend, Thunder Bay's Professional Firefighters Association and Salvation Army put together their annual autumn feast for the city's less fortunate. Tyler Kelleher has the details.
We have such a high need for this in Thunder Bay, and as a First Nations person and community-minded, I think it's important for everyone to give back.
Gloria Hendrick La Liberty volunteered for the firefighters and Salvation Army's very first Thanksgiving dinner while pregnant with her daughter. 22 years later, she hasn't missed a single one.
It's important when you see families coming with their young children who, can celebrate and have a good meal. With all the fixings, the salad, the main course, and a dessert. And yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to see everybody come.
20 firefighters were on hand for the free Thanksgiving meal that fed over 300 people.
We cooked up 12 turkeys, 200 pounds of potatoes were cooked and mashed, and I don't know how many bags of vegetables were also cooked, and many, many pies.
We started on Friday actually peeling potatoes, and then we came at 11. The Salvation Army staff does the cooking of the turkeys, and so we just kind of help serve it.
And serve they did. The dinner has become tradition come the fall time in Thunder Bay. The Professional Firefighters Association holds a number of events heading into the holiday season, such as Toys for Tots, but Sunday's festivities have always been special to those involved.
Everybody wants to come out. We never have a problem with numbers, and like you say, we see new families come in every year, so it's important because being first responders, we see the need in our community. So if we can see these same individuals that are maybe more vulnerable leave with a full stomach and a smile on their face, it's a great feeling.
Tyler Kelleher, TBT News.
And yesterday, clients at Thunder Bay's Shelter House celebrated Thanksgiving too with a fall feast complete with wild game. Ian Kaufman reports.
It's the 4th year for the Fall Feast event, which brings traditional Indigenous foods to Shelter House clients. This year's meal, feeding around 300 people, was sponsored by Martin Falls, a First Nation about 300 kilometers northeast of Thunder Bay. It included a moose meat stew, bannock, and rice pudding. Annabette Ashley Penascum spearheads the initiative, as well as another seasonal feast held in the spring. The moose meat for the meal was harvested by one of her family members. She says the feast is one way of acknowledging those who use the Shelter House.
Well, half of the clientele here are Indigenous people, and so it's about them connecting to their culture, and I'm sure they miss the food, and then also it's well received by all the clients here, and they love the kind of food that we prepare.
This is the first year the feast could be held indoors after the Shelter House became licensed to serve wild game last month. A welcome change on a cold evening. Operations Supervisor Michelle Morgan says the efforts of Ashley Penascum and about 10 other volunteers who helped with the feast mean a lot.
We're so fortunate to be able to share this feast with our community members, and it's a way for us to come together and give thanks. It is also important for us to celebrate the cultural diversity amongst our community.
Ashley Penascum is inviting other First Nations to sponsor future meals. She says she hopes the initiative inspires others to support the Shelter House with donations of winter clothing and other needed items. Ian Kaufman, TBT News.
The long-awaited Marshall's Outfitting Store opened its doors at Inner City Shopping Center today for a soft 2-hour launch before its full opening date this Tuesday. The store was open to customers this afternoon from 12 to 2 p.m. The popular retailer took over the space previously held by Sears before its departure in early 2018. Officials say the space offers over 20,000 square feet of brand name fashion and home decor at below market prices. The store's regular hours will be 9 to 9 Monday to Saturday and 10 to 6 on Sunday. The Thunder Bay District Health Unit is looking to help kids become more aware of the oral health issues most seen in adolescents. Health Unit staff recently visited Westgate High School to promote their newest campaign called Get Mouthy. They're targeting things like oral piercings and the associated infections, as well as things like energy drinks and smoking. Health promoter Adina Miller says teenagers need to know what specific issues are prevalent within their age group and how to curb those problems.
Unique needs and different behaviors as compared to younger children, and so we wanted to just focus on educating adolescents about those different behaviors, how they impact their oral health, and then what they can do to kind of minimize the impacts of those behaviors.
The campaign will visit all high schools in Thunder Bay and the